My paper and presentation is titled Key Components of a Successful and Sustainable Technology Plan. Today's students are basically immersed in a world of technology. We see that more and more in the classrooms, and we know it for a fact outside of the classroom. One of the researchers' studies that I was reading, he labeled this generation the I generation. It was actually a sub-generation, but they kind of pinpointed this specific generation just because of the different technology, the iPhone, the iPod, and all these other individualized activities. And so it was kind of like a sub-generation of what he had called the net generation. A technology plan can range from classroom specific, maybe a teacher is trying to develop their own plan for how they're going to use technology, but it can be as big as a district-wide plan. One of the reasons I chose this topic is because our district just finished a third phase in the a big bond that we had passed, and technology was a really big part of that bond. So I was just curious to see what the experts said and kind of compare that to what I witnessed, and then see what the common threads were. I found that there were three key components that were really important to the development of a successful and sustainable technology plan: the funding resources, different purchasing considerations, and then teacher training and professional development. The first was funding an educational technology plan. Usually, traditionally, anything with technology in a building or in a district has come from almost an external source. It's above and beyond what the district has budgeted for. So you're looking at grants, you're looking at community passed bonds that use tax dollars and millages, or maybe just a donation from a private entity or a corporation. Under the American Recovery and Investment Act, stimulus dollars, federal stimulus dollars, allocated $650 million to the Enhancing Education Through Technology Fund. So this is specific money dedicated to educational technology from the federal government. Technology companies are also known to work with schools. Usually they give them grants. Sometimes it's equipment. You don't see this quite as often anymore, but when things are really started to start up with internet in school and computers in schools, companies that are no longer in business, like Gateway, Hewlett-Packard, were known to help schools, usually in impoverished areas, to help get started on a technology platform. And then another alternative funding practice is what's called the E-rate, and it's a series of discounts that schools that they can apply for. It's a lengthy application process. This is money overseen by the Federal Communication Commission, and discounts can range from 20 to 90% on telecommunications, technology purchases, basically anything educational technology-wise. There are a lot of different considerations to make when purchasing and deciding what to purchase for technology, and I just picked out a few of the most important ones. And I thought it was interesting that one of the most important in one of the studies I read was that the people, not the devices, are the things that one of the most important factors that need to be considered first, because obviously teachers and students are going to be using it, and it needs to be people-driven, not device-driven. So teachers should be involved in developing the plan. They should be involved in the budgeting process, the purchasing. Maybe a series of questionnaires could be used to find out what they know, what they might actually use, so that things aren't just purchased and handed over to them. The infrastructure of a building is really important. Some school buildings are really old, and to update the technology requires updating the infrastructure. It might mean a complete electrical overhaul in a building. It might mean having to figure out how to run wires. how to get equipment from point A to point B, how much equipment to purchase because of what the school and its infrastructure can actually support. And then deciding what to actually purchase is the thing that everyone gets the most excited about, because there's always something new, there's always something nice and shiny and fast that we can get our hands on. But we really need to look at is what's going to be the most practical and what are the functions that we are looking at. Also, considerations like repurposing a machine, maybe handing it down from one department to another once new equipment's purchased. If it still works and it's not too old, then use it again. Buying refurbished equipment or refurbishing equipment, that could be cheaper than purchasing all brand new, and it's more practical. So those are some things to consider, and not just rushing out and buying the best new equipment available out there. You want to look for devices that can use free software and storage. iPads are synonymous with apps that are free. I think just about everyone's experienced that. And free is always better, or is always good in education, because we're usually on limited budgets. And then online storage is kind of the wave of the future. A personal example would be our district switched over to Google Mail and Google Apps this summer. It saves them a lot of money, gets them out of an expensive email system that they were using, and it also allows for huge data storage. Each teacher gets up to 30 gigabytes of storage on Google's server, so that frees up a lot of space internally within our district. The other things to consider are building in maintenance and replacement costs. A lot of the shelf life for this equipment, especially the tablets, is really low. 2 to 5 years is pretty typical for the shelf life of this equipment. So understanding that you're going to have to purchase extra or purchase more in the future. And then you also want to look at if you're buying computers like laptops, netbooks, desktops, that they use similar parts so you can swap out parts easily, that the tech support in your building and in your district can handle fixing this, and that they don't have to find several different parts just to maybe remedy one classroom or one building because there's no compatibility in components. So that's really important. Training teachers and professional development is the last thing that I looked at. You want to ensure that these initiatives, all this technology that's being put into a building, is going to be able to be used by the teachers. So teachers need to be trained how to use it. And it's probably one of the most commonly overlooked areas of a technology plan is the expenditures of professional development and the time that it takes to implement the professional development for teachers. One of the studies I looked at focused on North Carolina schools, and it was a huge statewide initiative, technology initiative, and the schools that adopted it, part of what they did was set aside 25% of their technology budget just for professional development and training. And you want to make sure that it's done with basically a beginning in mind and then throughout the school year, so that teachers can build upon their skills. Then those that really want to take it to the next level can take those skills on and start basically just implementing and trying new things and seeing what else works so that they can share it with the rest of the staff. A lot of time we go to these tech professional developments and it's a one deal, one and done, 1 day iPad training, and that's it at the beginning of the school year. And that's not a very good plan to follow. So you want to make sure it's continuous. I mentioned the continuousness of it. what it does, and a study has actually proven this, is that it makes the teachers more confident. They're personally confident in using technology, and they feel like they can use technology in their classroom more effectively. The other thing with professional development is it helps to maintain and sustain your technology plan. If you have one tech-savvy teacher in your building and they seem to be the helper for everyone, and that teacher gets laid off or their job gets eliminated because of budget cuts, your technology plan is basically done for, dead in the water. So the idea is that training teachers, one of the articles that I looked at, they had a couple teachers from each grade level at each of their buildings who were very proficient in the technology implementation, and then they were able to teach the other teachers. So this saved time because they could do it on their own time. They didn't have to have a special professional development day for this. And it helped to build the culture. It helped people to buy in. It's easy to listen to our colleagues a lot of the time, more so than listen to the quote experts that the district might bring in to teach people these things. And so it just helps to maintain the technology initiative, and it helps to make sure that it's moving forward, that everyone's buying in, and that the training gets passed along from year to year, so that the technology initiative and these dollars aren't wasted, that they can continue to benefit the school and or the district. This is a very complex process, and there are certainly things that I probably didn't touch on, but I tried to stick with these key components that I felt were kind of a common thread throughout important and successful technology initiatives that I was reading about, that I was studying about. So these are the things that I found to be the most important to make sure that that the technology plan of a school or of a district, or maybe even just of a classroom, continues to move forward. These are some of my resources that I used while putting this presentation together. I don't really have one in particular that stands out off the top of my head. The Stretching Your Technology Dollar by Johnson, 2011, was very helpful for someone who might be going into a technology director position at the administrative level, or maybe even the building level. And then these are just a few more of the references that I used.